Hello, I'm Mitch Jacobs with Intelligent Technologies, and thanks for joining us for this brief Acumatica webinar focused on its customization capability. You'll hear in the video that Acumatica is as simple as you want or as complex as you need. Customization is made easy through Acumatica's Configuration tab in Workflows. It's simple to individualize a system, almost like creating code without using a programming language. A powerful functionality. Enjoy.
We like to talk about it as being as simple as you want, but as complex as you need. So what does that mean? If you just have a very standard sales order entry process, then you would just set up one sales order type. But you can set up multiple order types for your sales orders, and I'm going to leave this page and go into the order types page. And you can see I've already got a whole range of these different order types. Now, why would I have these different order types? Well, these different order types have different rules and different parameters and different settings behind them. So, for example, I've got an order type which is a quote. And you can see I can specify all kinds of information, the numbering sequence, how many days I want to keep it for, and then all these other parameters. Okay, now if the parameter isn't relevant to this, then I can't click on it. But the parameters that are relevant, I do have access to. So all of this information, posting settings, and then I can go in and I can even set these things up as a template. Now, in Acumatica, you have this functionality called automation. And what is automation? Automation is basically a series of workflows. So right now, I've got an automation behavior called quote. And that tells the system, if I pick this automation behavior called quote, it's going to fire off a series of processes in the background which you can build. I'm not going to take you through that in today's presentation. That workflow automation is there, and you can tailor that to your specific requirements. All right? So not only do you have those workflows, you have a whole range of other things that you can do with your order types. So I can go back to my general settings, and then I can make some changes, and then I can save that. All right, so that's an example of that level of functional flexibility that you have inside Acumatica. And that's all about getting data into the system. But how do I get data out? Well, we've seen how we get data out using the reporting functionality. But for a lot of people, they say, well, what if I want to tailor that information specifically to my requirements? How do I do that? How easy is it to do that in Acumatica? Well, as you would expect, the good news is it's really, really easy. All I need to do is I can go across here into my system settings. And I go here, funnily enough, to an area called customization. Now with the customization, I can create a customization project which groups all of my customizations together and allows me to then save those customizations and apply them to a different system, or just group those customizations together so I can switch them on or off as a group. So, for example, if something is not working the right way in the product after you've done your customizations, you can just switch those customizations off. All right, check. Is it now working correctly? It is. Then it's something I did in my customization. So that's very, very important, giving you the ability to quickly toggle between before changes and after changes. Again, part of the power and flexibility of the Acumatica application that is all compiled, if you like, on the fly, versus other applications where it's a big deal to switch on those customizations and then switch them off again. But what I want to do is I want to create what we call a generic inquiry. So I go here and I specify generic inquiry. Now in best television chef mode, here's one I've created earlier. So if I go in here and I look for an inquiry title, let's say I want to see all my sales orders and quotes. So I can pick this generic inquiry. Now, this is the design mode, all right? So this is where I'm actually specifying how the generic inquiry will be created. When I want to run it, very different process. I just select run and it goes ahead and it executes. So for example, I can go here and I can say view the inquiry, and it then shows me that inquiry, and there's all my data. But for the purpose of the demonstration, we want to go back and we want to go in, and I want to show you how we are editing that inquiry. So let's go back, and we're now back at our generic inquiry screen. So there it is. So this generic inquiry is going to pull sales orders and quotes. So it needs to get information from my customer table, and it needs to get information from my sales order table. I can go in here and I can specify how are those tables related, what are the fields that link them together. Do I want to put any parameters in here? So at runtime, when somebody runs this generic inquiry, it gives them options. That's basically what these are. Select a starting date and a closing date, specify the value. So again, it's almost like you're creating code, but you don't have to know a programming language, okay? Very, very easy. What are the conditions that I want to put in? So this is like I'm building the query, this and this, or this value or that value, and so on. How do I want that grouped? How do I want the data sorted? And then, what specific information do I want to see in the result? So for example, I'm seeing order type, order number, status, account name. Let's say I want to use this generic inquiry for doing follow-ups with a customer. Well, what's one of the pieces of information that might be important to me? Well, maybe a phone number. So I can go in here and I can click on the plus field to add a row. I then go in here and I say, okay, specifically, where do I want this information to come from? Well, the phone number is going to be attached to the customer table. So I go in here and say customer. And then it's going to ask me, all right, which fields from the customer file do you want to grab? So I simply go through here and I find that particular information. So I'm looking for the phone number. So you might be looking at this and you're going, well, hang on, where is the phone number? Well, there is no phone number against that. Well, that's because that information about the phone number is actually stored in a different table. So all I would have to do is just go back here to my tables and add that particular table to my report. So again, I can sort this by name and I can do a search. So it's very, very quick and very, very easy to add the information you need to your generic inquiries. But for now, let's ignore that and let's just go ahead now and we'll view our inquiry. It's telling you, hey, Richard, you've made changes. Are you sure you want to abandon those changes? And I'll say, yep, I want to leave that page, and it takes me to the sales orders and quotes. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but this menu is actually changing when that happened. When I said run the generic inquiry, this menu has taken me down here into the sales orders menu, into the audit area under our reports, and it's running the sales orders and quotes. Well, why is that? That's because this generic inquiry, when it was created, we told it that that's where we wanted it to go in the sitemap. So see, I've got this sitemap location, audit. So if I expand this out, you'll see it's in my revision 2 company. It's in my distribution module up the top here, okay? It's in my reports area, again, across to the side, and it's in my audit navigation panel. And if I scroll down, you'll see there it is, sales orders and quotes. So let's say, for example, I wanted to have this in a different location. Let's say I wanted to put it in the work area, and I wanted to put it down here where I enter in my sales orders, shipments, invoices, and so on and so forth, because I might just want to be able to create it quickly from there. So all I do is I just double click on that. I select that sitemap location and then I hit save. That's now done. So when I go into distribution and I go into sales orders, you'll now see there it is. There's my sales orders and quotes generic inquiry. One click and it goes ahead and it runs that for me. Quick, simple, and easy. Here I go again, but wait, there's more. One click on the Excel button, and what does this do? This is now taking all of that information and it's spitting it out for me into Microsoft Excel. Now it's doing a little bit more this time than the previous example I gave you. I'm going to go ahead and save that. That previous example was a report, so it had formatting and layout and everything like this. The generic inquiry is just data, or data, depending on your accent. So it's just data. So when I open up this view of that information, it's just giving it to me in a grid like this. Now, important point to note. Remember, we talked about the fact that Acumatica uses this concept of web services. What is a web service? A web service is just basically a way of putting up a location on the web that external applications can securely talk to send and receive information from. Well, when we pump this generic inquiry out into Microsoft Excel, it automatically builds a link to a web service that's then sitting there on the internet. What does that mean? That means I can now take this Excel spreadsheet, I can save it on my local PC, and then when I'm on the other side of the world, sitting in my hotel room, in the airport lounge, or whatever the case may be, if I just want to update the information that's in here, I don't need to go into Acumatica. I just open up my Excel. It's going to give me this warning, be careful, be sure you want to do this, and I'll say, yes, I do want to enable my editing. And now here's my next security warning. It's saying, hey, external data connections have been disabled. So by default, Excel disables the ability to go and retrieve that data externally. I know it's a document I trust, so I enable my content. What then happens? If I want to make sure I'm looking at the very latest version of this data, then all I do is I go here to data and I go and say refresh all. All right? The system is now asking me for my username and password. So again, it's validating that I am able to access this data, because not only in Acumatica do we control access to the main system, we can also set access controls at the database level. So in this case, I'm going to say, yep, I'll put in my username admin and my password, and I'll say OK. And then the system will go ahead and it's just done a refresh on that data. So now, without me having to go back into Acumatica, I've got the very latest version of the data and I'm carrying it with me. Pretty cool. Well, I think it is, but then I'm an ERP dinosaur. I remember back when green screens were state of the art, and having this kind of capability in a piece of software is absolutely awesome. Not only can I export that data out, but in Acumatica, you can also create your data in spreadsheets and use that spreadsheet to push data in. It's a little bit too detailed for today's demonstration, but just wanted you to be aware that that can happen both ways, so that can be securely managed as well. Now, just as an FYI, this is a one-way retrieval of data. If I go in here and I start changing the numbers, all right, let's say I change this number to 3,450. I'm feeling pretty good about that. The system will know, Excel will know that I've made that change, so you've got a complete audit trail there. But if I hit save, it's not pushing it back into the accounting system, all right? This is a point-in-time snapshot. So if I go and I say File, Save, and I now save that document, well again, if I go back and I do my refresh all, what you'll see happen is you'll see, bang, that has now just been replaced back to the correct version of the information from the system. All right? So again, security is one of those things which, before we do anything in the application, the first thing we contemplate is what is the security impact of this, and we make sure we address that for you. A couple of other things that I wanted to take you through as well is you can extend out the functionality of Acumatica yourself utilizing any application that you like. I'm going to give you a specific example here right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to close down my Acumatica system in Google Chrome, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to open up Internet Explorer. So here's my Internet Explorer, and what I want to do is I want to go and I want to open up Acumatica. So I'm now looking at this in Internet Explorer. Now at Acumatica, we actually use SharePoint. So, and that's part of Office 365, which is Microsoft's subscription-based version of Microsoft Office. So in order for me to log on to my SharePoint site, I need to go to an address, acumatica.sharepoint.com, and I'll press enter. And the system then logs me on because it knows that I have got some saved credentials in here. But that's two different systems. What if I want to link the two together? Well, the good news is I can take any functionality that's available to me here in SharePoint or any other web-based application for that matter, and I can plug it into my Acumatica system. Let's take a look at one other piece of software that I use. To manage my social media, I use a piece of software called Hootsuite. So that's at www.hootsuite.com. And so there it is, my social media management, and I can sign in, and I'll sign in with my username. So there it is, there's all my information, all the different things that I'm following. These are all the people who come in my home feed. These are all the tweets that I've sent out because I'm using Twitter. I'm following a Twitter hashtag about Acumatica, and you can see there's lots of people talking about Acumatica. Even people outside our ecosystem writing blog posts and sharing information about how to work with Acumatica. So there's a very rich, diverse community of people that you'll be joining when you become an Acumatica customer. Wouldn't it be great if I could just access them all from inside Acumatica? Well, good news is, funnily enough, you can. All you need to know is the URL for the application. So I'm just going to copy that URL. And then if I go into Acumatica, so I go to System, Customization. So I want to add this into my sitemap. I'll go here and I'll choose Sitemap. So now here is my sitemap, and you can see Organization, Finance, Distribution, all those things across the top. So what I can do is I can add a new entry into my sitemap. So I'll go in here and I'll say, I'll give it a screen ID. So I'm going to call this EA for External Applications 000000, because that's the top level. All right? And I'm going to call this External Apps. And then all I need to do is just make sure I follow what's happening above here. So put in the same information. So put in a tilde, /frames, or of course I could cut and paste, but don't forget I've got my URL for my website that I want to incorporate into Acumatica. I've got that sitting there in my cut and paste. So I go .aspx, and that's done, and then I'll hit save. So what now happens? Guess what? Here it is. External Apps is automatically now here in the system. Now I actually want to move that up a little bit. I want to move that before my help screen. So I just use my up arrow there. I'll hit save. And it's now there before my help. So that's great. I've now got external apps, but it's still not showing up the application. So what do I need to do? Just the same as I've got these options here in my sitemap, under organization, for example, you'll see I've then got my next level, customer management, projects, and so on. And these always point to this particular file location. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So I go to my external apps, and I want to create another link. So I'm going to make this is my external apps 000001. And I'm going to say, well, these are my social media apps. Social media apps. And same scenario. Okay, I put my tilde / frames / default.aspx. And then I hit save. So now, if you look here under external apps, you'll now see I have an option called social media apps. Let's add one more, and I'll make this EA 000002, and I'm going to call this one collaboration apps. Same scenario, tilde / tilde / frames / default.aspx, and I'll hit save. Okay, so now under external apps, I've got two choices, social media apps and collaboration apps. Okay, so I've now got these two choices here. So then the next step is under my social media apps. This is where I actually want to add my page. All right, so following me so far? Again, that's the great thing about video. You can forwards, backwards. So here it is. Here's my social media app. So I can now see that's down here. And so under this is where I actually want to add the URL. So I'll add a row, and I'll make this external apps 000100, and I'll give it a title. So this will be Hootsuite. Okay, I can give it a nice little icon that appears on the menu. So I can click here and I can pick any one of these little icons. So I've got one there that might represent my social media, or of course you can add your own icons into the system. So if I pick this one will do. Okay, I'll choose that, and then I put in my URL. So again, all I do here now is I paste in my URL, and then I hit save. And now under external apps, under social media apps, there it is. I've got Hootsuite. So now when I'm sitting here doing my distribution and I think it's time to go and see what's happening from a social media perspective, I go to external apps, I click on Hootsuite, and there it is. There's all my Hootsuite information embedded straight inside my Acumatica system. That brings my demonstration to a close.
Thanks again for joining us. Please use the links below for more information or to start your free trial.